Life is brief. That's what they say. When most of us hear or think about this, we feel compelled to take more risks, get more done, travel quicker, explore more places and meet more people, acquire new things, and reach new levels of social and professional status. After all, we only have so much time until time disappears forever. However, because our time is restricted and may be limited, we should often interpret this term to mean the contrary. Because life is brief, we should slow down and simplify. Many of us, at some point in our lives, wished for an extraordinary life. Everyone wants us to be somewhere doing something, where we have a ton of friends and contacts, things to do, places to see, new products to acquire, and new social levels to accomplish. Perhaps this ideal was instilled in us as children, when we were told that our feeling of self-worth could only be confirmed via exceptional academic accomplishment. Perhaps it was influenced by the culture in which we were raised. Perhaps it is in our individual nature. Perhaps it is all of the above, or something totally else. Whatever the source, this idealization can drive many of us to pursue these kinds of high-energy, high-risk activities. I believe in simplicity, wrote transcendentalist philosopher Henry David Thoreau. It is both astounding and sad how many minor matters even the sharpest person believes he must attend to in a day, how singular an affair he believes he must omit. When a mathematician attempts to solve a complex problem, he first frees the equation of all impediments, and reduces it to its simplest terms. So, to simplify the difficulty of life, discern between what is required and what is real. Examine the soil to determine the location of your primary roots. Time is frequently regarded as one of the most valuable commodities. It really isn't. What makes value valuable is our perception of it, how we handle and think about it. It makes no difference if you have more or less time, if the majority of it is not spent and experienced well. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher, stated that we do not have a short life, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a suitably big sum has been bestowed to us for the highest achievements if all is well invested. But when it is squandered in careless luxury, and spent on useless activities, we are finally compelled by death's ultimate constraint to realize that it has passed away before we knew it was passing. So it is, we are not given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not undersupplied, but we waste it. Life is lengthy if you know how to make the most of it. Stoicism. Stoicism is a highly valuable school of thought to look to and draw upon when evaluating these concepts, simplifying one's life and making good use of one's time. Fundamentally, the Stoics taught that the person should aim to decrease all reliance on extraneous externalities, like as riches, material possessions, fame, control over other objects and people, and so on. Almost nothing material is needed for a happy life, for he who has understood existence, wrote Stoic philosopher and Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Instead, one should strive to spend their time fulfilling their responsibilities and working, cultivating command over their internal domain, and reserving their remaining time for philosophically focused leisure, only enjoying the fruits of one's labor if they come, without being motivated or affected by it. Although we are not required to reach the same conclusion as the Stoics, it is an excellent place to start. To see time clearly and identify what we believe is a useful use of it, we should at least conceptually remove any superfluous spending, and replace it with only what we actually want and need. The analogy of Descartes. In the 17th century, French philosopher René Descartes presented an analogy for a type of thought experiment that he had undertaken, in order to discover only what he could know with absolute certainty to be true, in his second edition of Meditations on First Philosophy. Descartes proposed an analogy in which you believe you had a basket of apples. You are worried that some of the apples are bad, and will spread to the other fresh apples. The only way to avoid this is to empty the basket completely, inspect each apple for rot one by one, and then only replace the fresh apples. Descartes used this to illustrate his process of questioning empirical and ontological ideas, but the same thought process can be employed when deciding how to spend our time. When we have a choice in how we spend our time, it is also a belief. It is our viewpoint on how life should be lived. But how often do we actually scrutinize the apples of our lives? How many of ours are currently rotten? How much has rotted, and how much will spread if we don't empty the basket at least once in a while to check? Boredom. A major aspect in all of this, not merely understanding how to spend one's time, but also successfully carrying out one's decisions, is somewhat counterintuitive. It is both the driving force behind our avoidance of doing what we want, and what we know we should do, as well as the answer to achieving what we want, and what we know we should do. Boredom is both the problem and the cure. The compulsion to do things all the time, whether it's filling our lives with ceaseless desires, filling our weekly schedules with plans and events, or filling every quiet moment with the noise of a phone, computer, video game, or whatever else, is largely driven by our desire to avoid boredom, both the feeling of boredom, and the feeling that others see us as boring. However, boredom allows us to ponder, and it is through boredom that we will discover incredible comfort, focus, authenticity, and productivity. When we are not compelled to fill our schedules with anything and everything, in order to simply avoid boredom, or the appearance of boredom, when we are not compelled to satiate the slightest hint of boredom with a phone or console, we will, instead, begin to do the things we would otherwise put off but actually want to do, and work on more frequently. Boredom, like most things, is relative. If, for example, one has no plans on a Friday night and is limiting their phone, or video game usage or whatever else, writing the next chapter of that book, or writing out that business plan, for that business idea, or journaling about one's thoughts, or calling one's mother or father, or currently enjoying time with just one person who is truly close, or enjoying the night quietly with oneself, suddenly becomes the best and only game in town. When the calendar is empty, the day is slower, and the room is empty, what is there to accomplish but the things you haven't removed, the things that are important to you, the things you put back in the basket? As a result, a simpler existence is not only more joyful and of higher quality, but it is also more focused and productive. Wu Wei. Of course, all of this is done to simplify the procedure. Ironically, proper simplification life is rarely straightforward. However, we may be able to benefit from another philosophy in this regard, Taoism. There is a Taoist concept known as Wu Wei, which translates as non-activity or action that comes naturally. This is commonly related to how one performs labor and activities, implying that one engages in tasks with deep focus and total immersion, loosening up and submitting to spontaneous activity. However, we can apply the same idea when deciding what activities to participate in the first place. If we aim to be less forceful in our actions, perhaps we should also strive to be less forceful in our activities. Going with the flow is commonly understood to mean saying yes to everything and letting things happen, but a much more accurate understanding here would be only saying yes to things that feel natural. In other words, when deciding how to spend one's time, if it is not absolutely a yes, it is definitely a no. Lao Tzu wrote in the Taoist book, the Tao Te Ching, "The ultimate good is like water, which nourishes everything without even trying. It is satisfied with the low locations that others despise." As a result, it is similar to the Tao. Stay near to the ground in your home. Keep your thoughts simple. Don't strive to control and governing. Do what you enjoy at work. Be entirely present in your family life. None of this is to imply that a quieter, simpler life is the right or better life for everyone, but it is the right and better life for many more individuals than those who already live that way. Furthermore, A fair amount of dullness and simplicity is still extremely useful and valuable for people of various interests and lives. The goal is not to do more or less, but to figure out what our lives genuinely require to stay on track. Perhaps some of us actually want and need the waters to be swift. Others, on the other hand, may find that a constant river that we can both paddle in and float in is sufficient. In a world without clear direction, being sane and nice is frequently far more important than being famous, world-renowned, or in a position of tremendous authority. Being a nice, decent person, a good friend to a few, a trustworthy partner to one, a well-focused participant in a well-chosen career, may sometimes be as heroic and successful as anyone can be. Perhaps the most successful people among us are those whom few will ever know. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment.